Hey there, this is Mr. Icarus, and welcome to yet another edition of Doom Mod Madness. This time around, we're checking out a mod by the name of Null, Face to Face. This version of Null that I'm currently playing only features 3 levels. It's an unfinished mod, but what's here is still more than interesting enough for me to decide to make a video about it. For one, the setup is kind of neat. Rather than being your typical run-and-gun demons have invaded, oh what a world kind of situation, you instead play a spy, indulging in a little bit of hyper-violent corporate espionage. The demons here are still demons. It's just in league with corporate interests, which, if we're going to be honest, fits like a glove. Another aspect of Null that I find quite interesting is that the levels aren't strictly beholden to the idea that you need to reach the end of it and flip a switch in order to win. Instead, they're more structured around the idea of acquiring intel, and in some cases, acquiring enough intel will be the trigger for the level to finish. And in the process of achieving these objectives, you actually learn more about the backstory, the intricacies of the corporation that you're raiding, the nature of your own employers. It's all a really effective way of building in a little bit of backstory, a little bit of lore, a little bit of intrigue. Said intrigue, generated by uncovering intel during that brief opening level, plunks you into a very different situation come the second level. As you can see, there's not a lot of shooting going on here. Instead, there's a lot of schmoozing as you make your way through a posh embassy reception. Glass of wine in hand, a glass that is unfortunately undrinkable. Gotta deduct points for that one, sadly, but during the course of this opening, you can freely wander and talk to as many NPCs as you care to, some of which are quite humorous interactions, some of which are banal, unintelligible, mostly due to your lack of understanding in the language of the country you're currently infiltrating. But your ultimate aim here is to track down a method of gaining access to the secretive research facility buried somewhere beneath the embassy itself. Thankfully, achieving this objective is much easier than anticipated. The keycard can be located conveniently on the bathroom floor, while the absent-minded security guard who's supposed to be holding onto it takes an extended pee break. I'd just say that you shouldn't linger too long in that bathroom. Whatever's happening in there is just beyond human comprehension and best not dwelled on.
Oh god, here it comes again.
Gaining access to the research sub-basement, you exchange your glass of wine for an ice-cold can of Warpass as you resume your duties in hunting down that sensitive intel while comprehensively murdering anything that stands in your way. Speaking of such things, you'll notice that there's a fair chunk of the standard Doom enemy roster in here, with also a light sprinkling of new entries to jazz things up ever so slightly. There's a few former humans in here that, instead of wielding pistols, wield machine guns. The very one that I'm wielding now, in fact. We've got a few different breeds of imp. These ones teleport and bamf all over the place, making them quite tricky to pin down. And we've also got a clutch of what I refer to as pus zombies. Delightful creatures. You gotta be very wary of them getting up in your face because, as you may have noticed, they tend to be slightly explosive when they die. Those latter two enemy types certainly add a more frantic nature, let's say, to some of the encounters during the course of Null, mostly due to the fact that a lot of the encounters in general will take place in fairly confined spaces. As for the weapons that you'll be wielding during the course of Null, you'll discover that for the most part, it is a fairly familiar bunch, albeit with a few licks of paint here and there, and maybe the odd tweak. For example, the pistol here certainly fires at a faster rate compared to its vanilla cousin. The shotgun, despite its look, remains largely unchanged, whereas the chain gun is replaced by the machine gun, which, just listen to that noise, that is delightfully dapper, and that is exactly how I want it to be. Much like the shotgun, the rocket launcher appears to be relatively unchanged. There might be a slight difference in terms of how fast the projectile itself travels, but to be honest, that might just be my eyes playing tricks on me. Beyond the rocket launcher, the weapons proved elusive. This one I actually had to discover by typing in the old IDKFA just to see what the rest of the weapons roster was like. Maybe it's tucked away somewhere within Null as part of a secret, but the plasma gun, as you can see, fires noticeably at a slower rate than the standard plasma gun that we all know and love. As for the BFG, no changes. Standard model, largely kills everything in the room whenever you fire it. No complaints. I feel like one of the more difficult things to convey about Null, at least during the course of a video such as this, is just how smooth and streamlined this collection of levels actually feels to play, and I believe that's a product of a few very intelligent design decisions from the level design itself, which never gets too convoluted as to completely bamboozle the player in terms of where they have to go next, to the choice of textures, which is actually pretty clean and simple, but not to the extent of the level itself losing personality. And I like to point out things such as the doors here with the bits of paper covering up what may have formerly been a UAC logo, because, you know, this isn't a UAC facility. At least not anymore. If there's one little bit of design within Null that genuinely impressed me and made me think, gee, this should be in every mod ever going forward, it would be the addition of picture-in-picture. Basically, it shows you what happens when you flick a switch. It sounds like such a simple thing, but I have lost count of the amount of mods where I have flipped a switch and had genuinely no goddamn idea what the switch I flipped actually did. It's just a damn good inclusion. Despite only featuring 3 levels, and all signs unfortunately pointing to this ending up as one of those unfortunate eternal work-in-progress projects, I'd say that Null is still very much worthy of your attention. Sure, it may not be doing anything particularly ostentatious or over the top, but sometimes all you need is just damn good design, and that is what Null features in droves. It's got a nice little bit of intrigue with its espionage flavored story, and it genuinely takes you on an interesting little journey as you track down the intel and follow the evidence to strange and unusual places. I'd say more about said places, but that would, in fact, risk ruining the surprise, in particular with regards to the final level itself, which is just plain neat. So yeah, if you want something solid, something fun, something interesting, then Null is certainly going to be worth your time. And if you are indeed chomping at the bit, then you will find the link, as usual, in the description below. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Feel free to let me know what you thought in the comments, and feel free to suggest any mod, not just Doom, any mod that you'd like to see me cover in future editions of Mod Madness. That's right, I'm trying to branch out, I'm trying to expand. In the meantime, though, I'd like to give very big thank to my wonderful patrons over on Patreon. Thank you so very much for supporting the channel and for helping to make content like this possible. If you're interested in lending a hand yourself, maybe you'd like to see your name in the credits, maybe you'd like to gain early access to my videos before anyone else, hell, maybe you'd just like to throw money in my general direction, well, if that's the case, you'll find the link to my Patreon page also in the description below. In any case, this has been Mr. Icarus. Thank you very much for watching. Icarus out.